Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible.
Do you remember the 80s? Glorious times, the age of extreme fashion, heavy metal, break dancing and mixtape. A strange and magical era which is still widely celebrated. But not in Latin America. They consider the 80s the lost decade. Why? Because they faced financial turmoil in the 80s, a debt typhoon which eroded their economies. What was the trigger? 2 large oil price shocks. Skyrocketing oil prices disrupted their finances, created big deficits and surpluses, took their foreign debt to unprecedented highs and pushed their economies to the point of collapse. Mexico was the first country to fall. In 1982, it declared that it will not be able to pay its debt. What followed was a series of sovereign defaults in Latin America. One country after another was engulfed in the debt crisis. Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, all of them fell like dominoes. They faced deep recession, high inflation, mounting debt, unemployment, and slow economic growth. 3 decades on, is history about to repeat itself? Look around you. Developing countries the world over are struggling with a sovereign debt crisis. One of them has already succumbed, Sri Lanka. Its economy has collapsed, ballooning debt and shrinking foreign reserves. There isn't enough money to pay for basic necessities. Of course, this crisis is of Sri Lanka's own making. The Rajapaksas mismanaged the finances, they spent more than the national income, they allowed deep tax cuts and destroyed the economy.
Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. Woman that travaileth.
Look at the global factors at play: the pandemic-induced slowdown, the growing cost of borrowing, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has increased food and fuel prices. These factors compounded the Lankan crisis, and they still persist. The fear is that the Lankan crisis could mutate. Experts say Colombo is just the canary in the coal mine. More countries are set to fall. The entire developing world is at risk. On the 15th of February, exactly 9 days before Russia invaded Ukraine, the World Bank issued a warning. Developing nations face a looming debt crisis. The World Bank named 70 countries, 70 low and middle income countries facing debt repayments worth $11 billion. The report said this burden could crush their economies in 2022. 9 days later, Russia invaded Ukraine. The invasion disrupted supply chains, it threw financial markets into disarray, and triggered a global oil crisis. The economic forecasts became darker and starker. In March, the United Nations released this report. It said there were 107 economies that face at least one of the 3 risks. Number 1, rising food prices. Number 2, rising energy prices. And 3, tougher financial conditions. 107 countries face these risks. Together, they represent 1.7 billion people. That's more than 1/5 of humanity.
Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith the Lord.